General Hospital spoilers tease that the long-anticipated return of Jack Wagner to General Hospital as Frisco Jones has officially been confirmed, sending shockwaves through the fanbase and sparking a tidal wave of speculation about what this means for the already volatile landscape of Port Charles. For years, Frisco Jones has existed as a mythic figure, a former WSB director whose presence lingered in dialogue and flashbacks, but now, with his dramatic re-entry, the stakes have never been higher. This isn't just a nostalgic homecoming, it's the revival of a legacy, and with it, the potential to unearth the darkest secrets buried deep within the World Security Bureau. Frisco's return is poised to reshape everything, particularly as it becomes clear that his comeback is tied directly to the explosive truth about Jack Brennan. Once revered as a top-tier intelligence operative, Brennan's recent actions as the current head of WSB have thrown the agency into chaos. Murmurs of internal corruption, off-the-books missions, unauthorized surveillance, and even connections to unsanctioned eliminations have surrounded Brennan like smoke before a fire. But now, with Frisco stepping back into the arena, that fire is ready to erupt into an uncontrollable inferno. This is not just personal, this is institutional. Frisco's mission appears to be rooted in a desire to expose the rot that has festered at the core of the WSB under Brennan's watch. His return isn't simply a symbolic gesture, it's a declaration of war. And for those in Port Charles who still bear the emotional scars of the WSB's shadow games, Frisco's arrival feels like the beginning of long-overdue justice. Carly Spencer and Jocelyn Jacks, both victims of the agency's manipulations, may finally have an unexpected ally in Frisco. While Brennan has grown increasingly dangerous, pulling strings behind the scenes, orchestrating threats, and leaving destruction in his wake, Frisco brings with him a unique combination of insider knowledge, emotional investment, and moral clarity. He understands how Brennan operates. And more importantly, he knows how to dismantle the empire Brennan has built on fear, deception, and betrayal. The return of Frisco Jones also hints at a seismic shift within the WSB itself. With the agency teetering on the edge of public exposure, Frisco may be the only one capable of restoring its integrity, or destroying it entirely in the process. His appearance suggests that key dossiers, long-classified missions, and silenced whistleblowers may soon come to light. Brennan's crimes are not just whispers in the dark anymore. They're becoming documented truths, and Frisco may be the one holding the proof. Whether it involves illegal mind control experiments, unethical detainments, or covert operations that violated international law, the WSB's secrets are no longer safe. This unfolding saga sets the stage for an epic battle, not just between Frisco and Brennan, but between the forces of truth and power, between redemption and destruction. With the Quartermaines, the Corinthos family, and the Spencers all likely to be pulled into the crossfire, Frisco's return could be the trigger that ignites Port Charles in ways no one is prepared for. Old alliances will fracture, hidden loyalties will surface, and the moral compass of every major player in town will be tested. In the end, Frisco's mission may not just be to bring down Brennan, but to decide what remains of the WSB once the dust settles. Will he burn it to the ground to expose the truth, or will he find a way to rebuild it from within? One thing is certain. The return of Frisco Jones is not merely a plot twist, it is a declaration that the past is not finished with Port Charles, and the war for the soul of the WSB has only just begun. Frisco Jones has officially confirmed a brief return to General Hospital, and while his stay may be short-lived, the ripple effect of his presence is already being felt across Port Charles. Behind the scenes, Frisco has been maneuvering carefully. And his decision to bring Frisco back, if only for a limited arc, signals a deliberate and calculated move to reignite unresolved emotional dynamics and long-buried WSB secrets. This isn't just a cameo for nostalgia's sake. It's a strategic spark in a storyline where the lines between personal history and political danger are blurring faster than anyone anticipated. Frisco's reappearance, however fleeting, reopens emotional wounds and resurrects dormant tensions. His interactions with Felicia are layered with decades of complicated history. Love that once burned bright but faded in the shadow of duty, betrayal, and time. Now, with Frisco's sudden proximity, Felicia is forced to confront feelings she thought she'd buried, conflicted loyalties, unresolved pain, and the undeniable sense that Frisco still sees himself as a protector, a fixer, and perhaps even a savior in a town drowning in corruption and deception. Their brief reunion is emotionally charged and subtly devastating, hinting that no matter how far they've drifted, the past still clings like smoke to everything they touch. But it's Frisco's scenes with Maxie that carry the most emotional weight. As her father, his absences have carved deep scars into her life. And even now, his reappearance feels as much like an intrusion as it does a homecoming. Yet something is different this time. Frisco seems genuinely grounded. Less driven by the call of global duty and more focused on what truly matters, his daughter, and the family he left behind. Their conversations, though few, are laced with fragile hope, regret, and the tentative beginnings of healing. Maxie, forever the strong one, is caught off guard by the vulnerability in Frisco's voice, by the way he looks at her like a man finally ready to make amends. It's a slow unraveling of pain and promise, and it's a reminder that even the briefest of visits can shift the tectonic plates beneath long-standing emotional divides. What makes this return even more potent is the backdrop against which it unfolds. With the WSB unraveling under Brennan's shadowy rule, Frisco's reemergence represents a reckoning. He's not just here to say hello, he's watching, calculating, and perhaps gathering intel. There's a weight to his gaze as he surveys Port Charles, as if he sees the whole town as a chessboard and is already planning his next move. His conversations with Felicia and Maxie aren't just personal, they're reconnaissance. A way of taking the emotional temperature of the people he once loved, the people who may soon be collateral damage in a much larger game. And through all of this, Frisco's fingerprints are everywhere. This storyline is clearly being positioned as more than just an emotional detour, it's a tactical escalation. Frisco's limited time return opens the door for a flood of consequences. If his goal is to take down Brennan, or at least expose what the WSB has become in his absence, then his interactions with Felicia and Maxie are not just sentimental. They're necessary. They tether him to this place, give him a reason to act with urgency, and give viewers a glimpse of a man torn between redemption and revenge. Ultimately, the brief return of Frisco Jones is proving to be anything but minor. It's a pulse point in a larger narrative arc that threatens to reshape not only the future of the WSB, but also the very emotional core of characters like Felicia and Maxie. And as Frisco pulls the strings behind the curtain, it's clear this isn't just about reconnecting with the past, it's about weaponizing it. Turning unresolved emotions into the kindling for a fire that may consume Port Charles before anyone even realizes it's begun. As Frisco, formerly known to Port Charles as Frisco Jones, steps out of the shadows and reclaims his place within the world of espionage, what was once a nostalgic return for Maxie and Felicia quickly transforms into the most volatile threat the WSB has faced in a generation. Frisco is no longer the idealistic agent who once served with purpose. He is a man hardened by the years of exile and betrayal. A man who now understands the depth of rot that has spread through the agency he once led. His confrontation with Brennan isn't just personal, it's systemic, ideological, and inevitable. And at the heart of that confrontation lies a horrifying truth. Brennan has declared war not only on Frisco, but on every man and woman who ever held the title of WSB director before him. Reports of mysterious disappearances within the agency had long been dismissed as rumors, agents lost in the field, retired operatives vanishing without trace, former directors dying in suspicious accidents across the globe. But Frisco knows better. He's traced the timeline, followed the inconsistencies, and now he sees the pattern clearly. Brennan is systematically wiping out the old guard. Those who know the agency's darkest secrets. Those who hold the moral compass he's long discarded. Those who, like Frisco, could reveal the truth. That the WSB is no longer a global intelligence network but a puppet of one man's psychosis, a ruthless extension of Brennan's need to control not just power, but the narrative of history itself. Returning to Port Charles, Frisco finds himself surrounded by ghosts, memories of his daughter, Maxie, once just a child, now a mother herself, of Felicia, whose strength remains a tether to the man he used to be. But sentiment is a luxury he can no longer afford. Every step he takes in this town, every interaction he has, could expose him to Brennan's reach. The town is no longer safe, not when Brennan's operatives may be watching from the shadows, waiting for the moment Frisco reveals himself. And yet he returns not to hide, but to wage war, armed with encrypted files, classified evidence, and a resolve forged in silence. The danger becomes even more profound when Frisco realizes Brennan's plans extend beyond institutional dominance. His schemes are deeply personal. Brennan has begun targeting the families of former WSB leaders, a strategy as cruel as it is effective. Frisco's return has not only put his own life at risk, but has made Felicia, Maxie, and even his grandchildren potential targets. The weight of that realization forces Frisco into a corner, where he must decide whether to flee to protect them or stay and finish what Brennan started. But Frisco has never been a man to run. Not when the enemy is so close. Not when the truth remains hidden behind layers of bureaucracy and manipulation. And the truth is darker than even Frisco could have imagined. In his absence, Brennan has built a vast web of influence, alliances with arms dealers, corrupt politicians, even splinter factions of international intelligence agencies. The WSB has become a shell of its former self, a weapon for assassination, intimidation, and cover-ups. Brennan has rewritten the rulebook, silenced whistleblowers, and punished loyalty with death. And now, Frisco's reappearance threatens to unravel it all. Not just because of who he was, but because of what he knows, because he holds the last piece of evidence that ties Brennan to covert black site operations, civilian casualties, and high-level executions ordered without sanction. As tensions rise, Frisco's presence begins to ripple through Port Charles. Anna becomes aware of unusual activity within her former agency. Robert's instincts flare, sensing that something far bigger than local crime is brewing. Jason, still tangled in mob wars and moral ambiguity, begins to suspect that the chaos in the city may be a symptom of something much more sinister. The return of a former WSB director doesn't go unnoticed. And neither does the quiet panic that follows it. Brennan is watching, waiting, planning. Then the first strike hits. A near-fatal car crash that almost takes Maxie's life is ruled an accident, until Frisco finds evidence of tampering. A break-in at the Scorpio residence reveals surveillance devices planted in Felicia's belongings. Someone leaves a single bullet on Frisco's hotel pillow with a message written in Cyrillic. One by one, Brennan has made his message clear: if Frisco doesn't disappear, his family will. And yet Frisco pushes forward. He begins to recruit, quietly pulling in the few remaining agents loyal to the original WSB code. Men and women who, like him, watched in silence as Brennan corrupted everything they once believed in. Together, they form a secret task force within Port Charles, gathering intelligence, exposing weaknesses, and preparing for the moment Brennan will strike openly. The city becomes the battleground, and the people within it the pawns in a chess game far older and darker than anyone imagined. But the end game is approaching. Frisco knows Brennan won't stop until every last remnant of the past is erased. And Brennan knows that as long as Frisco breathes, the truth still has a voice. Their final confrontation is coming. Not in the shadows of bureaucratic halls, but in the streets of Port Charles itself. The cost will be high. Blood may be spilled. But Frisco is no longer just fighting to save the agency. He's fighting to save his daughter, his legacy, and the last fragments of justice the WSB once stood for. And when the smoke clears, when Brennan finally steps into the light and the world sees the face of the monster hidden behind a government badge, Port Charles will never be the same. Frisco's unexpected return to Port Charles marked more than a reunion, it marked the beginning of an unraveling. When he sat down with Maxie in the quiet corner of the Quartermain estate, the weight in his voice wasn't just paternal concern. It was the burden of years spent guarding secrets too volatile to speak aloud. Secrets about the WSB. About the corruption that poisoned it from within. About the people Maxie trusted, and those she never knew were watching her. One by one, Frisco began to peel back the veil. He told Maxie the truth about the silent war being waged behind closed doors, the betrayals buried beneath layers of loyalty, and the names of those who died because they asked too many questions. It was a floodgate moment. The kind that changed not just a conversation, but a life. As Frisco detailed what Brennan had done, how he manipulated files, orchestrated assassinations, and used the WSB as a personal tool for vendettas, a new sense of dread began to settle over Maxie. Everything she thought she knew about the agency her father once led, about the network that should have been about protection and justice, was crumbling. But Frisco wasn't just here to reveal darkness, he was here to warn her. Because the danger wasn't over. It was only beginning. Brennan was watching. And he knew Maxie was now a liability. And then came the name that shattered Maxie's composure, Nathan. Frisco didn't say it lightly. He didn't promise resurrection or miracles. But what he did reveal was something just as disturbing. There had been whispers for years of a covert operation involving high-risk identity redactions. An underground project where certain agents or witnesses were eliminated, on paper but preserved in secret for future utility. The file Frisco found, coded, fragmented, half-burned in a deleted server farm, contained DNA sequences that matched Nathan's. A 94% certainty. Enough to send Maxie into emotional freefall. Because if Nathan was alive, then everything, her grief, her healing, her moving on, had been built on a lie. And if he was being held, it meant someone deemed him valuable. Which meant he was in danger. Real danger. This changed everything. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about Frisco exposing the WSB's crimes or Brennan's coup. It was about a deeper conspiracy. One that reached into the most sacred part of Maxie's past and tore it apart. And now, she wasn't just the daughter of a former director. She was the potential key to blowing open a global scandal. If Nathan was alive, if he was being held in one of Brennan's black sites, then Frisco's return wasn't a second chance, it was a final warning. Maxie would have to decide how far she was willing to go. Whether to reopen wounds that never fully healed, to risk her family, her safety, and her sanity to uncover a truth that might destroy everything she built in Nathan's memory. And yet, even as the fear took root, something else began to stir in Maxie, a resolve forged by motherhood, by love, and by the blood in her veins. She had lived through trauma, through lies, through heartbreak. But this wasn't just about her. It was about Nathan. It was about justice. And as Frisco reached across the table and handed her a drive containing the raw intel he risked his life to retrieve, Maxie knew there was no turning back. The changes were just beginning. The shadows in Port Charles were growing longer. And if Nathan was truly out there, alone, hidden, broken, then Maxie would tear down every wall to bring him home. Even if it meant going to war with Brennan himself. The shifting tides in Port Charles were no longer subtle tremors beneath the surface, they were seismic ruptures tearing through the very fabric of the town's fragile peace. With Frisco's return came more than just the quiet footsteps of a once powerful WSB director, it came with fire, with unfinished business. And with a mission to resolve the chaos he helped build and once walked away from. What began as a calculated re-entry quickly transformed into a storm of revelations, retaliation, and ruthless agendas. Frisco was no longer just a former operative, he was now the last line of defense in a town that had become a battlefield of buried secrets and explosive truths. The adjustments he made, the interventions he initiated, and the enemies he provoked were all signals of a reckoning long overdue. But it wasn't just Frisco's mission that fueled the unraveling. Beneath the surface of everyday normalcy, Port Charles was sitting atop a powder keg. Jocelyn, trapped in a web she never fully understood, was hiding a secret so volatile it could fracture not only her relationship with her family, but also shift the balance of power across the entire WSB landscape. A truth hidden not just out of fear, but out of necessity. Brennan knew it. And Brennan, with every fiber of his corrupt ambition, intended to use it. His manipulation of the agency had gone beyond protocol and into pure obsession, turning him into a ghost of a man who operated with no allegiance but to power itself. He was no longer trying to control the game. He was trying to erase the board, and every piece on it. Among those pieces was Brit, a name long thought consigned to memory and grief. But whispers of her survival, quiet, persistent, and sourced from places too credible to ignore, were beginning to spread. If Brit was alive, if she had been kept hidden by a faction within or outside the WSB, then everything Maxie, Frisco, and even Jason believed about loss, betrayal, and sacrifice was suddenly rendered false. Her life represented more than survival, it represented leverage, a wild card capable of detonating decades of lies. And Brennan, knowing how dangerous Brit's return would be to his carefully constructed empire, would do anything to suppress it. Port Charles, once again, found itself in the eye of a storm. This time, however, the chaos wasn't born from romantic scandals or petty rivalries, it was war. Frisco knew that the resolution of the riddle now depended on strategic dismantling of Brennan's network, swift extraction of the remaining loyal operatives, and most critically, unraveling Jocelyn's tightly guarded secret before Brennan could weaponize it. But every move Frisco made was countered by Brennan's next, a chess match of ghosts and secrets that dragged deeper into the abyss with every passing hour. As Brit's name echoed through the whispers of survivors and former WSB loyalists, as Maxie started piecing together a web that connected her past pain to present danger. And as Jocelyn stood at the edge of confession and collapse, Port Charles began to splinter. Loyalty was tested. Truth blurred. And the streets that once echoed with hope now throbbed with paranoia. Frisco understood that the current adjustments he was orchestrating were not merely about redemption, they were about survival. Because Brennan wasn't just erasing the past, he was rewriting the future. And if Frisco failed, no one, not even Jocelyn, Maxie, or the ghost of Brit, would be safe from what came next.